Alright, so in this video in my series of videos leading up to the fight between Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. on April 26, we're going to be taking a look back at the controversial rematch between the two men's fathers back in 1993. That of course being Nigel Benn versus Chris Eubank 2. So that was the rematch from their first fight back in November of 1990, the grudge match and the war of attrition in which Eubank stopped Benn in the 9th round to take his WBO middleweight title. But since that first fight, both men had moved up to super middleweight, and Chris Eubank had claimed the WBO super middleweight title, and Nigel Benn had claimed the WBC super middleweight title. So that brings us to October 9th, 1993, the super middleweight title unification fight in front of over 42,000 people at Old Trafford, which was the big rematch between Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn. Now this very nearly wasn't a unification fight, and there's a very interesting story on that. So check out my previous video in this series called The Family Affair that is Benn vs Chris Eubank Jr. if you haven't already, and head over to the promoter's timestamp to find out why this fight almost wasn't a unification. Link will be in the top of the description for that one. Now yes, Benn vs Eubank 2 did end in a disputed decision. After 12 rounds, the fight was declared a draw. So today I'm going to take a look at this fight on a round for round basis to discern what the final verdict ought to have been. But first, let's take a look at what the official final scorecards actually ended up being. I will show each judge's total score here, but I won't show how they scored each individual round until after we look at the fight. But one thing I should establish from now is that Nigel Benn was deducted a point in the fight. Alright, so Judge Carol Castellano had the fight 7 rounds to 5 in favour of Nigel Benn, which was a 114 to 113 card for Benn with the point deduction. Judge Harry Gibbs had the fight 115 to 113 to Eubank, a 7-5 card for him. But where's the point deduction there? Well, funnily enough, Gibbs just straight up didn't count the point deduction. Then the third judge, Chuck Hassett, had it 114 to 114. So this was the card that evened everything up for the split decision draw. So where's the point deduction in that one then? Well, Hassett did count the point deduction, but he had an even 10-10 round in there as well, which levelled everything out. So clearly by those different cards, that was a tricky fight to score. But a lot of the British public reckoned that Nigel Benn was robbed in this fight, a gift decision for Eubank. However, others refute those claims by saying that the fight was way too close to be called a robbery and that the draw was fair. But here's my thing before I even score it. Robbery or no robbery, look, 10-10 rounds are shunned upon in boxing judging for the most part. As a judge, you are really encouraged to give each of the rounds to one of the fighters. And I personally never give 10-10 rounds while scoring a fight myself. But this even round that was scored ultimately levelled everything out. And as for the judge who didn't count the point deduction, well, he would have had the fight 115 to 112 in favour of Eubank anyway. But correct me if I'm mistaken here, as a judge, you have to count any point deduction or knockdown that the referee rules on your scorecards. And it's not up to you whether you want to count it or not, or you didn't think the knockdown or the point deduction was legitimate, you still have to score it. Am I right in saying that? So although this fight may very well be close, with those logistics in place, the chance that I'm about to come to the conclusion that this fight should have been a draw is slim to none. Maybe I'd give an even round if there was literally nothing in it, but neither one of the two official judges had that particular round even, so that round can't be that close. And by the way, this isn't my first time scoring Benn vs Eubank 2 here, but I haven't scored it in a good while now. I think the last time I watched the full fight was over 4 years ago now, back in lockdown, and I definitely scored it to Nigel Benn back then, but I can't remember exactly how I had it. I did have it written down on a piece of paper amongst other scorecards or fights that I was watching back in lockdown, but I can't happen to find this Eubank Benn 2 scorecard anywhere. So maybe I'll change my verdict this time around, because we're always learning when it comes to boxing, aren't we? But let's be honest, I still don't know ish about boxing, and I still can't score a fight properly to save my life. But okay, so let's finally get into the fight now. Was Nigel Benn really robbed? Was the draw fair? Or did Chris Eubank deserve the win? Okay, so round 1 we've got a cagey start in there, but Eubank was the first to land clean with a nice left hook. Then he got a clean right hand in after spinning Benn to the ropes. There's a lot of clinching in the first round, coming from both men as they meet in close, so neither of them getting off too clean with punches. Benn just misses a big right hand and they meet in the clinch again, and Eubank is warned by the ref for clinching here. Now when they do meet in the clinch, Benn does land a couple of clubbing rights up the side of Eubank's head to assert himself in there, but nothing too clean again. Then Benn gets a nice double left hook into the head then body, but the left to the head is blocked and the body shot was ruled low by the ref. And that was it for round 1. Now I'm going to have to give round 1 to Chris Eubank, because that left hook shortly followed up by the right hand were the only real clean shots I saw landed. So 1 round to 0 for Eubank after the first. Benn was nice and evasive early in round 2, so Eubank went for the old headlock. Benn then got a decent left hook to the body enough of an evasion, but then Eubank touched him to the body a couple of times after. More clinching here. Benn not punching off of these evasions too much, but is still throwing rabbit shots in the clinch. But then Benn does land a good right hand and makes contact with a couple more shots after. Another nice shot from Benn not long after with a leaping left hook. He then threw another left hook not long after that looked like it landed, which was followed up by a blocked right hand. Then Benn made Eubank miss the rest of his punches for the round. So round 2 was a definite Nigel Benn round. Got a few good shots in and made Eubank miss the whole time. That's 1 apiece after the second. In the third, Benn lands a nice body shot early. Then when he backs Eubank up, they end up in the clinch. After the clinch, Eubank lands a clean right hand. Then a nice left hook to the body off of a slip from Benn that looked like it landed. Not long after, Benn lands a decent right hand that actually hits the forehead of Eubank. Then it looks as if Eubank just got the better of the tight knit exchange after. Benn was still rabbit punching in there and got warned for another low blow, but then Eubank actually lands a proper low blow and the ref acknowledged that one. After this, Benn landed a decent right hand to the head as Eubank was coming into clinch. Then Benn landed a decent left hook to the body coming in close, and shortly after he got one of those nice leaping left hooks in. So round 3, despite Eubank's right hand early on being the best shot of the round, Benn did the better work all round and landed more shots. So round 3 is another Nigel Benn round, making him 2 up after 3 on my cards. Now I do have to pause here to mention this in case any of you did notice that the graphic said round 4 there at one point. When I saw this while watching the round, I got shook because I'm like, what happened? Did I miss the whole third round after skipping back to watch a punch again, then skip too far forward after? But no, that was round 3 that we just looked at there. That was actually a mistake from the ITV production team. I'll leave a link to the full fight video that I'm watching in the description if you want to check me on that, or if you just want to watch the full fight anyway. But I'm pretty sure the one I'm watching is the first to come up when you search up Nigel Benn vs Chris Eubank 2 anyway. But yeah, that was round 3. Okay, so moving on to the actual 4th round. A left hook to the body from Benn is the first punch to make a connection here. Then the two men trade one big body shot each, but Benn's is called low by the ref. Couple shots made connection from Eubank here, but it looks like they were blocked by Benn. Benn backs Eubank up to the ropes, throwing a right hand that didn't look like it landed. Then there is more clinching. Then Benn lands a clean right hand that buzzes Eubank and knocks him back quite a bit here. Now, I don't think Eubank is fully rocked here. He seems to be letting the momentum of the punch take him back rather than expending the energy to resist it. But it's not a good look getting rocked back like that with a clean shot to the chin either way. Benn lands another right hand that Eubank takes well this time. Here I'm not sure if either man lands as they come in close. It is hard to tell if some of these shots are landing or not here. But Benn manages to stumble Eubank back a bit with a right hand again. And that was it for the action in round 4. That 4th round, from the right hands, especially that big one, I got to give it to Benn. So I've got Benn 3-1 up after the 4th. A nice fast start to round 5, shades of their first fight here. It looks as if Benn gets the better of the first exchange, but then they clinch again. Then Eubank has Benn backed up to the ropes and he's throwing and throwing, but Benn is making him miss all of these shots. Then Benn gets one nice right hand in. Benn keeps focusing on trying to evade everything Eubank throws, but it does look like a couple of Eubank left hands get through here. Eubank gets a couple of shots in close, then a rabbit punch from Benn. Here it looks and sounds like Eubank landed a big right uppercut to the body, but I can't fully tell with the camera angle. I'll assume that's what landed here. Neither man can land clean as they break from the clinch, as both men are quite cagey in this outing. It looks like Eubank lands another nice right uppercut to the body here with Nigel Benn's back to the camera. Again, it more than likely did land. Benn grazes Eubank with a right hand to the head in the midst of an exchange here. Then Eubank lands a nice clean right hand to Benn's jaw just as he's backing up. And Benn fails to get his own back after that big shot from Eubank. To me, round 5, it's kind of close, but it's got to be a Eubank round. He was taking the initiative more in there, and that last right hand solidified the round in his favour for me. So after 5 rounds, I have it 3-2 to Nigel Benn. Alright, round 6 now. Both men throw a bunch of shots at each other early, but it doesn't look like any of them land here. Benn is making Eubank miss with shots again, but not punishing him for it. Then both men exchange body shots and Eubank looks like he just won this exchange. Then Nigel Benn goes low again in close and is deducted a point by the referee here. A pivotal moment in the fight. Benn throws more of those rabbit shots in the clinch and then he lands a good clean right hand afterwards. Chris Eubank throws a bunch of shots in this flurry here and it looks like 1 or 2 of the shots might have gotten through. Benn then falls out of the ring after kinda being shoved out by Eubank. Wouldn't be the last time Nigel Benn would fall through the ropes like that in his career. Both men throw shots in close, but nothing by the way of clean punches landed here. Then Benn punctuates the round with a nice big right hand, followed up by another smack to the chin with the right hand in close. I wouldn't call that one a rabbit punch at all, landed to the jaw. So round 6 is a real toughie to score. It can't go to Benn either way because of the deduction, so it's either a 10-8 for Eubank or a 9-9 round. And look, even though Eubank looked to be more active and throwing more clean shots, those two straight right hands from Nigel Benn in the round just stood out to me way more than any Eubank shot did. Eubank didn't make much of a clear connection at any point in the round because Benn was so elusive in there. So toughest round to score thus far, but I'ma have to edge it to Benn. But yes, with the deduction, that's a 9-9 round. So after 6 rounds, at the halfway point in the fight, I have it 3 rounds to 2 to Benn with 1 even round. Alright, so round 7, both men are throwing shots early, but they all seem to be missing again. Still neither of them getting through. Benn making Eubank miss here, and Benn's right hands in the clinch are the only shots making contact. Benn backs Eubank up with some shots, but it doesn't look like they land here. Benn lands a little right hand upside Eubank's head. Left hook to the body from Eubank looks to have gotten through. Benn throws one of those leaping left hooks, but it's blocked by Eubank. Benn gets a nice little body shot in close here. Both men still missing with shots. Another little body shot in close from Benn. Then another slapping right hand to the side of Eubank's head lands. The two men tussle and try to end out the round strong, but the round ends with Eubank slipping over to the canvas. That looked just like the knockdown at the end of the 8th round in their first fight that Eubank protested as a slip. But that time just there, the Nigel Benn left hook did get through before Eubank went down to the canvas, to be fair. So round 7, really not the cleanest round of boxing by any stretch, but Benn just got through with more shots there, so I'ma have to give round 7 to Benn as well. So after 7, I've got Benn 4-2 up with the 1 even round in there. Round 8, neither men landing with their shots early again. A right uppercut from Eubank looks to have just gotten through and touched Benn's chin here. Benn lands a little body shot, more clinching here. Benn still making Eubank miss with pretty much everything. Leaping left hook from Benn just grazes Eubank here, I think. Benn still evading shots very well, then goes to the body. A Benn right hand lands here. Benn still active with the right hand in the clinch. Both men then miss on the break. Eubank still just can't hit Benn in there, and Benn pops up with a right hand that does land. More clinching again, and then Benn stumbles Eubank back with a clubbing blow. Not a clean shot there. And that was it for the round. So round 8, look, it's got to be a Benn round again. Eubank is throwing more, but he literally can't hit Benn at all. So Benn landing the odd right hand here and there is enough to get him the round again. 5-2 to Benn with the 1 even round after 8. Round 9 started like the first 3 rounds did, but I think both men may have just grazed each other with a shot here. A Benn left hand looks to have landed before they meet in the clinch here. Benn is making Eubank miss to where Eubank actually falls over, but Eubank gets a cheeky kick to the neck in there. Then Eubank tries to catch Benn off guard with a punch as they go to touch gloves, but then a Benn left hook lands and he gets a couple of slapping right hands in to win that exchange. Benn still as elusive as ever, and then he gets a left hook to the body in. Eubank is warned by the ref for hooking Benn's arms in the clinch. Benn's still working in the clinch, still going to the body, and still evading Eubank's shots in there. Eubank makes contact with a right hand but is caught by the glove of Benn, and then Benn blocks all of these slapping lefts from Eubank as well. Benn lands a single shot to the body again, keeps making Eubank miss, then gets to working close to close out the round. Round 9, Eubank continues to be frustrated and bamboozled in there and just doesn't really land a clean shot at all. And Benn was nicking it by getting these body shots and stuff in here and there. Only thing Eubank really landed in that round was the kick to the neck. So I'll be honest, round 9 is another Benn round, making it 6-2 to Benn with the 1 even round 3/4 of the way into the fight. Fast start to the 10th, Benn gets Eubank backed up but no clear punches land. They clinch and then Eubank lands a nice short right uppercut on the break. A Benn left hook lands, then another nice Benn left hook lands and he goes to follow up, so Eubank holds. Benn keeps at him afterwards, then they end up in the clinch. Benn gets the better of things in close and Eubank just can't hit him here. Nice little short right uppercut from Eubank again, but Benn takes it with relative ease. Benn lands to the body, gets one to the body in again. He's still making Eubank miss in there. Then he throws some of those rabbit punches. Eubank blocks Benn's shots in close here as Benn evades his. And in the last exchange in the round, the Benn right hand did appear to land. So round 10, Benn outlanded Eubank there, so it's got to be another Benn round. 7-2 to Benn with the 1 even after 10. Round 11, another fast start. A Benn right hand and a body shot just land here, I think. Eubank made to miss again. Benn sneaks in a close right hand, then Eubank throws a big flurry, and these first 2 or 3 shots to the body definitely land, but Benn ducks the headshots again. They trade in close, but nothing big here again. Benn right hand lands on the break here. Another right from Benn, then a body shot. Eubank returns a body shot. Nice left hook from Eubank here, and Benn can't land a return shot. Benn touches Eubank to the body. Then Benn is ducking Eubank shots here and gets a right hand in and another little shot in the last exchange. So round 11, Benn outlanded Eubank again, but nothing too telling from Benn shots at all. More eye-catching stuff from Eubank there. So we finally have a Eubank round again in the fight, making it 7-3 to Benn with 1 even through 11. Another fast start here in the 12th and final round, but this time Benn does land a couple of clean shots in the exchange. He starts making Eubank miss again by ducking low, then gets some decent shots in himself. The two men trade right hands, then Benn starts ducking Eubank's shots, then pops up with a couple of clubbing blows that miss, but the right uppercut on the end just landed. A Eubank left lands here, but the follow-up shots miss. Benn lands to the body. Eubank touches Benn with a couple of shots, then Benn gets a little right hand in. Eubank lands a right hand, then pursues Benn, but Benn ducks the follow-up shots, then pops up swinging with his own punches to win that exchange. Bit of bravado from both men in the clinch here. Eubank unloads on the guard of Benn and one shot does get through, then Benn pops back up and gets one shot of his own back. Then we get more showmanship between the two here. A Eubank right hand lands to the back of the head here due to Benn's awkward positioning. Then he can't quite get to work in close, but Eubank does land a right hand right at the bell and the fight was over. So the 12th and final round, for obvious reasons it doesn't really matter who I give it to on the grand scheme of things, but I am going on a round for round basis here, looking at each round for what they are. And to be honest, that was quite a close round, and it is easier to lean towards Eubank because he was the aggressor and he ended the round better. But I really did just see Benn outlanding him throughout the round, dodging Eubank's shots, then coming up with these shots of his own. And those erratic evasions really allowed him to hit and not get hit in a bunch of the exchanges, even if he only landed just the one shot back himself. So round 12, I will have to just edge to Nigel Benn, meaning after 12 rounds of World Championship boxing, I have it 8 rounds to 3 for Nigel Benn with the 1 even 9-9 round, meaning the final score on my cards is 116 to 111 for Nigel Benn. So just to recount my cards there, I have round 1 to Eubank, round 2 to Benn, round 3 to Benn, round 4 to Benn, round 5 to Eubank, round 6 I have it even at 9-9, and you might remember me saying earlier that I don't score even rounds, but I actually said that I don't score 10-10 rounds, which is an actual even round. Round 6 is a Benn round by the punches, but it's even at 9-9 because of the point taken off. Then I had 7 to Benn, 8 to Benn, 9 to Benn, 10 to Benn, 11 to Eubank, and 12 to Benn. So yes, I disagree with the official verdict of a draw. From what I saw just watching the fight back, just looking at who was getting through with more punches, I think Nigel Benn won that fight. And I know I said that I had it 8-3 to Benn with 1 even round in there, but that really is a 9-3 to Benn card with a point off. I do think that the point deduction was justified, but I just say that to say that Eubank lost 9 of those rounds in there, but the point off leveled 1 out. Now I scored each round for what it was, and I wasn't going by any narratives of the way the fight was going. You know, I wasn't going to give Eubank a token round to tighten things up just because Benn won a bunch of consecutive rounds, a couple of which were close, because if you win a round, you win a round at the end of the day. I was not taking any biased stuff into consideration either, like whose style I liked more or anything. I'm just looking at who's doing more damage with clean and effective punches. I'm not being an analyst trying to analyse how the shots were set up or how Eubank was open for the right hand or how he should have went to the body more when Benn was ducking or how Benn should have been more economic with his evasions and tighter with it so he could actually punch off that head movement better. Nah, I just got my judge's cap on today and I was just looking for what shots actually landed. And as for any dirty tactics from Benn, you might say that he was ducking below the waist at times, throwing rabbit shots, and that his positioning was to blame for the clinching more often than not. Yeah, you could say that. But as a judge, I'm looking to see who lands more shots. If the ref wants to take a point off, then I take that point off on the card. But I'm not going to redact scoring shots that I've seen a fighter land on my own volition because I see them getting away with something dirty. As a judge, you're just trying to see who's more effective with their clean punches, and it's up to the referee to deal with the rest. Am I right, or am I really digging myself a hole here? Do I actually really know nothing about boxing? Because I'm not reading that whole scoring criteria again, I'll be honest. But yeah, that's just common sense to me, the way I've just described it. So yeah, I'm not saying that this was the worst robbery ever, and I wasn't making this video with the intention of making a case for a Nigel Benn win. I literally just watched the fight back for the first time in years to make this video, and I went round by round as I said, not knowing what was to come next. And I even took my notes and timestamped the clips I was going to record from each round before I scored the rounds. So I didn't edit this video to tell a certain story or anything like that. I took the fight moment for moment, let alone round for round. But as I said, I'm not here to cry robbery or make any conspiracy theories about why the powers that be in boxing would have wanted Eubank to keep his WBO belt or anything. This particular video is just focused on the scoring alone. And we know that the official judges didn't have the luxury of pausing and rewinding and all that like I just did. But just to quickly add this in though, when I usually score fights or give my cards for a fight, just when speaking about it, I don't like to pause and rewind it because I do want that real judging experience. But for the sake of actually putting a video together to try and see who won a fight, then, you know, I really got to break it down like that to try and discern who should have won. But let's get into the official judges who sat at ringside and how they scored each round. Okay, so here's the judge that had it 115 to 113 to Eubank, but actually should have had it 115 to 112 to Eubank, but he just seemed to have not counted the point deduction. Now my theory on this is that the guy thought it was a Benn round, but he takes the term 10-point must system very seriously, so he gave it as a 1-point round for Eubank, a 10-9. But to me, yes, one fighter, specifically one fighter, should have a 10 by their name each round, but obviously a point deduction overrides that. That's why it's got its own section on the score sheet. I don't know why I'm correcting these trained professionals here when I haven't even read the rulebook though. Actually, do you know what? I just realised what he did, but I'm going to get to that afterwards. I did just realise what he did as I spoke just now. So, seeing as this guy had Eubank winning, let's count the rounds that he gave to Eubank that I didn't. Because every round I had to Eubank, he obviously did too. So, this guy gave Eubank rounds 2, 6, 8 and 9. All 4 of these rounds are rounds that I had for Benn, minus the deduction in the 6th. So, that's kind of wild. Okay, so the judge who gave it to Benn, yeah, look at this. She did give Eubank the 10-8 in the 6th, but she gave every round in the second half of the fight to Benn. So, I scored round 11 differently to her as I had that round to Eubank. And unlike me, she gave Eubank the 2nd, 3rd and 6th. Now, to take a look at the judge who had it a draw, it was round 5 that this judge scored evenly, and I gave that round to Eubank. Yeah, I do recall calling that a close round, but I don't even know if it was the closest in the fight. Well, I do know what was the closest in the fight, but again, I'm realising something as I speak right now. So if this particular judge stuck by the principle of not scoring even rounds, then in theory, Eubank should have won the fight on the cards. And unlike me, this person gave the 3rd, 6th and 7th rounds to Eubank. Okay, so the thing I just realised, the judge that had it 115 to 113 to Eubank, yes, the point deduction is counted on his card because there's a 1 next to the deduction, so he did count the point deduction. I was wrong in saying that, but the reason he has it a 10-9 to Eubank is because he scored that an even 10-10 round, and obviously with the deduction that's a 10-9 to Eubank, so yeah. But to be fair, minus the point deduction, round 6 was the closest round in the fight by a good bit. Like, I definitely remember like not knowing who to give that round to, because Eubank was just doing way more, but it barely landed. And then Benn did land 2 right hands, but that's the only thing he landed. So, to be fair, round 6 was the closest round in the fight. So, do you know what? Yeah, cool. That's 10-9 to Eubank in the 6th. Fair enough. With the point deduction. So yeah, back to the overall scoring though. Now, me personally, I would struggle to give Eubank 5 rounds in there, let alone 6. And 5 rounds to Eubank would of course be a 114 to 113 card to Benn. Well, it should be. But maybe I need to watch the fight back again now, because I've gone through all this innocently with you guys. I didn't take into consideration how each judge scored each individual round while watching it back just now. But maybe I need another little rewatch of the fight with all that in mind. And maybe just to watch the fight again to enjoy it properly without really scoring it that hard. Because it was a decent fight. Not the best fight ever. Not as good as their first fight as everyone says. But a hard fought battle from both men's part, with each round being very competitive. Not the cleanest, not the most thrilling, but very nice and competitive. And every movement and every punch just means way more in there when the two opponents are such big rivals and the crowd were so into it. The rematch definitely added to the value of their rivalry big time. Okay, let's get all the scoring stuff aside now. Ultimately, Nigel Benn got stopped in round 9 in the two men's first fight, got stopped on the feet right at the end of the round, and therefore lost his WBO middleweight title. But this time, in the rematch 3 years later, he devised a game plan that pretty much made him unhittable most of the time, a cagey and well thought out approach that had him just outlanding Eubank nearly every round. But hey, he couldn't get the nod on the cards, he couldn't get revenge on his arch nemesis who he despised so much, and couldn't take his WBO super middleweight title from him. Of course, a draw in a unification fight meant both men kept their respective titles, but for Benn, it weren't about the belts clearly. He won that WBC belt back in '92, and the first thing he did after winning the belt was start calling out Eubank for a rematch. And yeah, he got the rematch around a year after that, but it wound up being a draw when the fight happened. And yes, at the time, a lot of you may know, the trilogy seemed to be the next move, but Benn Eubank 3 never actually materialised, and Barry Hearn calls this the worst thing to happen in boxing, the Benn Eubank trilogy not happening. Nigel Benn never got his win over Chris Eubank, and it ate away at him for years. And he always said that the Eubank trilogy was the one thing he'd come out of retirement for many years after both men's retirement, and even to this day. But the two men's sons will fight now, on April 26th. So let's think of that as Benn Eubank 3, why don't we? Let's see if Nigel Benn can live vicariously through Conor here in this chapter of the Eubank Benn saga, and be satisfied with a Conor Benn win over Eubank Jr. as a win for him over Eubank Sr. But yeah, you guys be sure to check out my previous couple of videos in this series for that real family affair type stuff between the Eubank and the Benns, if you haven't seen them already. Comment how you guys scored Nigel Benn vs Chris Eubank 2. Stay tuned for the next video in this series, and you have been listening to O.M.E. Boxing.